This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
This is what you can look forward to on our kickoff salute to Halloween, episode 139 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
And don't worry, no secret squirrels here.
That's the first time I met George Lucas, and I said to him, you made my favorite movie of all time, American Graffiti. Well, I would like to thank your mother and all the other mothers all the other 70,000 mothers.
King of the spoilers, Mr. Kevin Kiner. R2's footprint is still in the middle of Sarah's back. I don't know how it got there. I don't want to know how it got there.
But it will be again at the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Hello, Skywalkers.
Listen. Up to Neverland.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Wow. Oh, what?
You are skywalking through Neverland.
Hey, Skywalkers! Welcome to Skywalking Through Neverland. We are the fun-filled, family-friendly Star Wars and Disney podcast that brings you entertaining stories from the creators and fans. Now, we wouldn't be able to do this without the help from our family of Skywalkers out there who listen to the show every week, post in our Facebook group, our Scope Walkers right now who are watching us on Periscope. And they just spread the positivity about our adventure through fandom.
Our collective adventure through fandom.
You know it. Now, I am Richard Woloski, or as Trisha Barr has dubbed me, your tour guide through fandom.
That's so cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
And now, everyone, please say hello to my sweetie wife, Sarah, who's the navigator through fandom.
Oh,
how's that?
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, hello everyone to our Star Wars and Disney family. Thank you so much for supporting this show throughout all social media. And of course, we love it when you tweet at us. We are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter. And you will be a tweet walker, as well as a Skywalker, as well as a scope walker. There's so many things you could be.
And they are all our family of Skywalkers.
Yeah.
Just love saying that.
Aww.
Now, we are recording this from Long Beach, California on October the 4th, 2016. Now, coming up on this episode, we start skywalking through October by looking forward to Halloween.
Yay!
And we talk with Don Post Jr.
Whoa.
Now, Don Post Jr.'s father, he's nicknamed the Godfather of Halloween, and he started up Don Post Studios, and together they were making hundreds of latex Halloween masks.
Like the good kind.
So we're very happy to have him on our kickoff October episode.
It's really interesting stories.
As we'll hear later on, he's the one who got the license to get the Star Wars masks made back in 1977. I can say this is a very fun personal story to me, so I was so happy. And a big thanks to Donald Wicks, who really set that up a year ago at the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala when the two had met, and he forwarded me his phone number. And so, Donald, thank you very much for that, and it was a lot of fun talking to him.
Yeah. Also, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is just around the corner, which means it's almost time to get in line, you guys. But where? And when? Well, luckily, Ric Peralta from liningup.net, he is here to give us some information about that.
We will also look at the Kevin Kiner track, combining the Holocrons from the Rebels episode that aired last week, Holocrons of Fate, and our inspirations, the music of Star Wars Rebels segment.
We love our music segments. Now, also on this episode, of course, we have our shoutouts, a Skywalker of the Week, and, in another salute to Halloween, a C-3PO Halloween safety tip for selecting your costume.
And we have things we want to share, but first, let's name the winner of last week's foreign dub contest.
Oh, okay.
And the winner is, by a hair, Greg Scott.
At GScott1847.
Yeah, we got to give Russell Flores a nod just for he almost got it. He was almost there.
He was first.
But
yes.
Greg Scott beat him with some more details.
It's true.
So the scene in question was from A New Hope, where Darth Vader is strangling Admiral Mahdi on the Death Star, and it was in Japanese.
Everyone got Japanese.
Yeah, I think those Darth Vader clips are too easy to recognize because of his breathing.
Well, I knew it was Darth Vader, but I at first thought it was
Ozzel?
Admiral Ozzel as Darth Vader's trying to give all this info to Piet of what to do next, and Ozzel's dying behind him. It's like, how can you focus? That scene always bugs me.
I think it would have been all right had Piet said, you know what, tell me one more time.
Yeah.
Honestly,
yeah, right?
I wasn't really focusing on what you were telling
attention.
me. I was focusing on the dead man behind me. So if you please forgive me. And what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So here is that clip now in Japanese.
馬鹿げた魔法で我々を脅そうというのがベータ教。お尋ねしたいが、君のご自慢のフォースとやらで盗まれた設計図を取り戻すことができたのかね。同盟軍の秘密基地がどこにあるかぐらい探り当てられたのか。
フォースを侮辱する者は許せん。
もう十分だ。ベーダ、許してやれ。
お望みとあらば。
And now here is that same clip, but in English.
Your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes, or given you clairvoyance enough to find the rebels' hidden fort.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish.
All right, now, Sarah, you had put out a post on our Facebook group asking people where they listen to Skywalking Through Neverland.
I did.
What a fun idea.
It was. I got that idea from Libsyn, which is our podcast host, and they throw out all sorts of ideas, and we'll get into a little of that later. But where do people listen? Well, let's go into this. Amanda Bond, she listens with her cat. She posted a nice picture.
And with her husband, but at that time, her husband was doing something else, so she had her cat.
Yes. Now, Matt Clifton, he posted a picture. He listens with his dog, Breeze. He has 3 dogs, and apparently Breeze likes us best. So thank you, Breeze.
We'll have to do you know what? Oh, maybe Breeze can be a new Skywalker of the week.
Ooh.
Oh, all right. Write that one down.
All right, Breeze. You know what? You better share our show.
Now, the Hunts, they weighed in and said they listened together as a family. Not sure where, but they listen somewhere as a family.
Okay.
Michael Smith said he listens while running.
And Kai Charles, she listens in her dirty car. But she did post a picture, and it didn't look dirty.
No.
Kai, you're good.
We'll show you a dirty car.
Yeah, right?
Patty Hammond listens in her living room. And you know what, guys? We want some more pictures.
Yeah, so right now, if you're listening, stop what you're doing and put up your phone and take a selfie and go, hey, I'm listening. And then tweet at us at SkywalkingPod or post in our Facebook group.
Yeah, it's really fun to see those pictures.
Yes, we love it.
Once again, we want to get you Skywalkers involved, and it's just fun to see. It's something for us, okay?
Yes. Bad Wobot says he listens on his phone app wherever he is or she.
All right, with that, let's get into our mega edition of Things
We Want to Share. Did you want to do that? Okay, yeah, I liked that.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
All right, first, let's kick off with Rogue Friday. All right, we did a big road trip on Friday to go shopping. Only we almost missed Rogue Friday.
Yes, we almost did. Thank you to Periscope for notifying us. Steve Glosson and Teresa Delgado both were on Periscope that evening on the East Coast and Central Coast time.
And I do this every time. If something is at midnight on the night before, or is it that day, the day after, is it Thursday night, but Friday morning, is it Friday night, but Saturday morning? I got confused, and we were just laying on the couch.
Friday is in the name, so I could see how you'd be confused.
Right. So we saw everyone's posts on Periscope and Twitter. So we grabbed our car keys, and this was like 9:30.
Yes.
9:30, and we drove down to Toys R Us because they were the only ones selling anything at midnight.
Right.
And every other store we thought would be open were they were closed.
And people were saying, thank goodness we're on the West Coast because we get all the info from the rest of the country. But people were saying at Toys R Us they were giving away free swag. So we're like, all right, well. Let's do that.
And so we got some free swag maybe to give away sometime soon for the Skywalkers who missed out.
We might have some Halloween contest.
Now, Sarah, what did we buy at Toys R Us?
We bought nothing.
Yeah, not a thing. Not a thing. We walked in, there was like a little swap meet table with a couple of items.
They didn't even have it on their shelves. They just had, the boxes that were emptied right behind the swap meet table. So you could tell they were like putting stuff out as people bought it. And I did have a Jyn Erso Black Series figure in my hand. It was like the last one left, but I don't know this character yet, so I can't get involved yet.
That didn't stop anyone else.
I know, but that's the difference between me and
so
other collectors.
So we got our swag and we went to Walmart, which was closed.
Yep. Then we went to the Walmart Superstore down the street.
The 24-hour Walmart,
which was closed. Oops.
So we packed it up and thought, all right, tomorrow we will hit Disneyland.
Yes.
And see what's going on there. And that's where I got these awesome ears that I'm wearing right now.
Yep. So on Rogue Friday, we spent a total of, $15?
But with our annual discount, we spent $12.
Oh, there you go. Woohoo!
Yeah, we would love to have gotten more. However, these just spoke to me here.
They're so cute.
Yeah. And we had to clear out some Rogue One space.
It's true.
So,
we like to wait and decide what we want.
Yeah, like we said last week with Duncan Jenkins, we're going to get the items that really are functional and that really speak to us. These are both. These spoke to me. These Mickey ears with the glowing, flashing X-Wings and battling TIE fighters. Had to have them. They spoke to me and they're functional because they're really fun. And now Sarah's putting them on her head. Nope, she's showing all of our scope walkers. Look at the animation on there. That's just fantastic.
That's one ear.
So thanks to everyone who posted their grab for the night. You guys really made out like bandits out there. So many black figures and elite figures everyone got and Funkos. So once again, thank you for sharing. Now, let's talk about something else, and that is Jedi News UK.
Ooh.
They just published another one of my articles. Now, last time I had written for them the top Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels characters we want to see on the big screen. Well, I thought, you know what, let's broaden that out. I want to really go to the vintage animated comics and vintage animated series. So with that, I would love to see Princess Nisa in an upcoming Star Wars film, and she is from the Ewok animated show of the 1985s and 86s.
Oh, Wicket! What if we're too late to warn the village?
And I know that at some point we're going to see more Ewoks in another Star Wars live-action film, and why not have Princess Nisa?
Oh, I would love to see that.
And also continuing on with the Ewok theme, I want to see the Dulocs.
If you were any kind of a wizard, you'd figure out some way to keep these bugs off us Dulocs.
You know the Dulocs, right, Sarah?
No.
They look like the Grinch, but from the wrong side of the tracks, from the other side of Whoville.
What planet are they from?
Endor.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like the second cousins to the Ewoks, and they look like they're not from Whoville, but from like What'sville. Very dirty and matted green fur, but great characters that I really want to see in an upcoming Star Wars film.
Okay.
And also, of course, this goes without saying, we need to see Hoojibs.
I am Cliff, my good creature, and I dare say more intelligent than that shaggy beast that grabbed me.
Yay!
Hoojibs.
Of course.
And upcoming Star Wars films because they're our new Skywalking Through Neverland mascot. We have Jedi Tank and now Hoojibs.
Yeah, Hoojibs, definitely.
So it'd be like an extra shout out to us if they put them in a live action film.
Aww.
So to see the rest of the blog article, got to go over to Jedi News UK. And thank you to Mark Newbold for posting that up there.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's tell everyone about the new information we just found out about the big podcast cruise coming up next year.
2017. So September 17th, 2017, a 5-night Disney cruise on the Disney Wonder that leaves from San Diego. It is now officially a Halloween on the High Seas cruise. Woo!
We had predicted this when we were talking to Randy Crane a couple of weeks ago, and we thought there has to be the Halloween theme. It's so close, they can't not have it. But we weren't getting our hopes up, and we just found out we should get our hopes up because it's going to be a Halloween cruise. And so excited about that. So if you're looking for that one reason to join us on our podcasting cruise, other than having an awesome time, well, then just know it's going to be an awesomer time because it'll be Halloween.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited about this. There's going to be, well, I'm sure like the characters will be dressed Halloween. There's going to be like Halloween party, and they encourage everyone to dress up, so I'm super excited.
We get to find out how much cosplay we can do, because at Mickey's Halloween party at Disneyland, they've limited what you can wear.
I think on a cruise it's a little more relaxed, I think.
Yes, and as Go Mouse Scouts had mentioned, that this is on the ship, the Oneater.
The Disney Oneater.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
No, hold on. That's the Wonder. The
Yes.
Wonder. There you go. It's on the Wonder. So please come and join us. Now, Sarah, if they did want to come and join us, where would they go to find out this information?
They would go to storiesofthemagic.com/cruise quote and then click on the orange Get a Quote button in the upper left. And that way you're sending your information to Randy Crane, who hosts the Stories of the Magic podcast, and he can set this all up for us. So basically just say you want to go with the Skywalking Through Neverland cruise, and he'll be able to put you in the right group and give you more information on that. And once again, if you do commit, it's not like you're fully committing, because I think it's July 1st, 2017, you have to say, oh, no,
yay
I
or
don't
nay.
want to go. Yeah, yay or nay. So you can book it now at a cheaper price, and then later you can opt out of it.
Yeah, even though the price is a little bit steep, what we do is we're paying on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
That way, come next year, it's all paid up. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So we encourage all the podcasters out there and all listeners and Skywalkers to come join us. We already have a good amount of people who are signed on.
And if we're all coming, we all be Hoojibs one day. Oh my gosh, we could have a Hoojib hop on the cruise.
Too awesome. Too awesome.
Yay.
All right, now let's talk about some other podcasts that we had just appeared on.
Yes, we get around, Richard.
Yes, we do. And where are we being heard this week?
Well, this week we are on the DCast, which is on Network 1901 in all podcatchers. We are on the DCast number 93. And it was a really great episode. They also put it on YouTube. Go Mouse Scouts just said they heard it. And it was a really fun time. All of our energy was up, and we talked about some cool things. So
yeah, we talked about what went into Skywalking Through Neverland, our Rogue Friday, and our opinions on the news of the week, including the Lion King.
Yes.
It's not a reboot. Live action remake.
Yes.
And
live action / CGI photorealistic version.
That one.
Yes.
And we also weigh in on the fact that Disney might be buying Twitter.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, Disney's going to own us all one day.
Yes. So check that out on Network 1901. And Richard, where else were we this week?
Well, this week we appear on episode 69 of Zilch, a Monkeys podcast. Now, I know you Skywalkers have heard us talk endlessly about the revival of the Monkeys for the 50th anniversary tour and how we went to go see their concert. Well, someone had recorded the whole concert with great audio and played it on episode 69 of Zilch. And what Ken Mills does, who is the host and creator and producer of Zilch, he weaved in comments from the fans in between songs, and it really became a nice souvenir episode, as he's calling it. So, Monkey fans out there, if you didn't get a chance to go to the concert, well, listen in to episode 69 of Zilch, and you'll be able to hear the concert as well as our reactions. And if you listen really closely, you might be able to hear Mark Hamill in the audience.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
What?
He was there. And if you listen really closely, I'm not saying I heard him. I'm just saying that anyone who knows his laugh, who knows what his singing voice sounds like, might be able to pick him out.
Awesome.
All right, now we have one more thing we want to share this week about another podcast that we were on.
Now, besides being Rogue Friday, September 30th was also International Podcast Day. And you might have noticed that on Twitter. People were posting hashtags and things. Well, Libsyn, which is the company that hosts our media, and if you have a podcast, you should be hosting with Libsyn because they're amazing. They put on a whole big all-day live show on Podcast Day full of how-tos and great info, and it kind of culminated with this roundtable Q&A session with all 5 of the people involved.
Yeah. I can't wait to sit down and listen to this whole package.
It's 9 hours on YouTube, but it's like full of awesome information. If you're looking to start a podcast, if you want podcast help, like just check out Libsyn Tutor on YouTube, and they have a whole ton of videos.
From what we already heard, just amazing information.
Yes, absolutely. So before Podcast Day, they have a podcast. Libsyn has a podcast called The Feed, and they had asked anyone who was listening, any podcasters, to send in promo videos of up to 10 minutes long, just kind of saying Happy International Podcast Day, this is our podcast, blah, 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 blah. Well, Richard and I, being who we are, we decided to do a fun video, and we had to bring our party hats because we were celebrating Happy International Podcast Day.
Had to step in there.
Yeah. So later on that day, we heard that in their Q&A, they actually mentioned our particular promo.
Because they were talking about how it's International Podcast Day, but no one was wearing party hats or any party mood. But then someone said, oh, wait a minute. There was a show that did bring their party horn blowers and treated it like a party.
So should we listen to this?
Yeah. So this is the audio we got from the round table, so you wouldn't have to hear all 9 hours of it.
My question is for all the Libsyn staff. Does this really feel like a celebration? And if so, where are the party hats?
Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
The video that played before we went live, Sky, help me out. They're a show about Star Wars and Disney, and they're really awesome, really cute couple. And I'm sorry, guys.
That narrows it down to about 5,000. Star Wars and Disney.
It's a married couple, and they're adorable, and they're awesome, and I loved their promo video. And I'm so sorry, I'm blanking, guys. It's been a long day. Really long day.
Yes, it has. Hence the celebration
they pulled
question,
out.
guys.
They had like the party favors. And they had the hats, and they were like doing the whole thing, and it was cool. So there were hats and celebrations earlier, just not by us.
And by the way, it's Skywalking Neverland.
Yes.
We got that from Val. Val let us know about it. She's actually on wine number 2 for her, so let's cheer her on for because we are happily like that as well.
When I went through the promo videos and I was going through and I was finding them and I was pulling up their shows in our system and I was encoding them, putting them all together for the whatevers, and I came across that one and I was just like, wow, they're fun. I need to meet you guys sometime.
So I'm so glad that we made an impression.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. And she wanted to meet us. That was cute.
Yeah. She forgot our name at first. Sky.
How can you forget Skywalking? Come on. No.
Well, I'm sure after 9 hours, their minds are just mush.
Yes, I'm sure. Not everyone is Star Wars fan. Like, I would remember Skywalking just because I'm a Star Wars fan. But
yeah, so we'll give them the pass. So
yes.
Thank you very much, Libsyn, for commenting on our video.
Yes.
We're happy to participate in International Podcast Day.
Thank you, Crystal, for remembering us.
And that was Things We Want to Share. All right, now before we talk to Don Post Jr., I want to give another big shout out and a thank you to our good friend Donald Wicks, who was the one that set this up a year ago, and I held off until Halloween because this is a perfect time to speak to this man who was the son of the Godfather of Halloween, and I was just beside myself with excitement knowing that we're going to talk to this man whose merchandise I've been wearing since 1977. Was the cornerstone of my collection, having these Don Post Star Wars masks.
Here you are being the tour guide of fandom again.
Oh, there you go. Going back to 1977.
All right, take us through our story.
All right, now, before we do that, for the youngins out there, and we know we have a lot of youngin listeners who don't really know what Don Post Studios is, well, get ready to be schooled. Now, this was one of the first licensees to actually have Star Wars merchandise on the shelves back in 1977. Now, Don Post Studios, well, they started even back before my time, back in 1938. Yes, a few years before my time.
Wow. Just a few.
Yeah, and they had made masks for Hollywood films as well as the consumer. You have the same guy who's making these Frankenstein masks who actually worked on some of these films. So it was like wearing something that came from a Hollywood makeup studios.
Wow.
Which was a huge, huge selling point for them. And then in 2012, Don Post Studios closed their doors and they sold some of their division to Gemmy Inflatables. Now, that's the company that makes and sells the big lawn ornaments.
Okay.
Like we just got.
Oh.
Yeah, those big Halloween and Christmas lawn ornaments.
Yay.
We just got the BB-8 one. That's technically for Christmas, but we're using it for Halloween.
Yes.
And the Kylo Rens and the Darth Vaders, all those inflatables. Well, that company bought out Don Post Studios, and then the Halloween division was sold to a company called Creative Studio Concepts, which in turn sold the license to Rubies.
Okay, so that's why we get all those Rubies costumes.
Yeah, all those cheap knockoffs.
But you know what? The Slave Leia works as a good running outfit.
Very true. Very true.
Knockoff one.
Now, I really wanted to give everyone a little bit of a background on Don Post Studios because I think it was a cornerstone once again of merchandising and how people could become their favorite characters by wearing these very high quality masks.
Well, now, before we get into our interview with Don Post Jr., this was kind of a special interview because normally a lot of our interviews we do over Skype, but this one, he lives not too far away from us, about an hour, and Don Post Jr. himself invited us to come to his house and interview him. So,
okay.
Yeah, knowing that the sound quality would be that much better and wanting to, of course, when you're invited to someone like that's house, it's like, okay, yes, please.
He even had a couple of dogs who chimed in every now and then.
Yeah, he had 3, what were the kind of puppies? Shelties.
Yes.
Shelties. He even had 3. The dogs were Shelties.
Yes.
So I'm not allergic to them. So we heard dogs barking when we pulled up. I'm like, oh no, because I tend to get stuffed up, and of course that sounds bad on the mic. So yeah, but they were Shelties. So it's like, oh, I'm not allergic to you. I can pet you. Yay.
All right, now let's get into our talk with Don Post Jr.
Skywalking through Neverland.
When kids like me of the 1970s and 80s grew out of their Ben Cooper vinyl Halloween jumpsuits, they transitioned into self-made costumes complete with a Don Post Studios mask.
What better way to celebrate Halloween on Skywalking Through Neverland than to talk to the son of the Godfather of Halloween, Mr. Don Post Jr.
Hey, Don Post.
Yes.
I love saying that name because for me it's synonymous with the early Star Wars merchandise. Because
Very nostalgic.
Having the Darth Vader helmet in the back, it would be stamped Don Post Studios. And as a kid, if you were a Star Wars collector like me, you were bumped up to the next level if you had a Don Post Studio Star Wars mask.
Right. Well, at the time, my son was about 8 or 9 years old. After the movie came out, I gave him a Darth Vader mask to take to show and tell at school. And I remember him walking on to the play yard of this school, and like some kind of magic, like a magnet, within a minute, every kid on that schoolyard was around him because Star Wars was such a phenomenon, and he had the Holy Grail. He had the Darth Vader mask.
He was a rock star.
He for those few moments, he was definitely a rock star.
Wow. Now, what was your job over at Don Post Studios?
Well, when I got involved in 1968, and I I was at the studio and John Chambers was there, and he says, "Oh, well, you're out of the service now. Why don't you come over and we'll sign you up and you can become a makeup artist."
Right. Now, for the listeners out there who don't know who John Chambers is, he's really famous for the Planet of the Apes makeup and the National Enquirer Bigfoot picture and a lot of really ape type of makeup designs.
And I said to my dad, I said, I think there's a lot of potential at Don Post Studios, which at the time was in about 1,500 square feet of space and had one part-time and one full-time employee besides my dad. And I said to him, I think there's potential. I said, I'd like to develop this into something because I saw all the masks. I knew that people were interested in them and liked them, and that when people saw them, if we were painting some, people would say, "Oh, are these for a movie?" No, this is a retail merchandise. So I knew there was something special there. And I said that to him. I said, I'd like to see if I can develop this into something. And he said to this 22-year-old kid, "Okay, do whatever you want."
Oh.
And I, with no money and no financing, but with all the assets that Don Post Studios had, the artistic assets and all those Universal Monster molds, I started making product and we started growing, and we experienced 50% or 100%. We doubled our dollar volume every year up to the Star Wars time.
Wow.
And past the Star Wars time. And it was one of those things, if you build it, they will come. The interest was there. It was a matter of getting the merchandise onto shelves where people could buy it and where retailers could see the potential.
All right, let's jump over to the movie Halloween. Now, this is one of my favorite stories, that John Carpenter needed a mask for Michael Myers, so he stripped down the Don Post Studios Captain Kirk mask.
Well, yeah, that's true, and I think they've got some copies from Burt Wheeler's Hollywood Magic, but then someone came to Don Post Studios, and they got a copy from us, and they said, "Well, we'd like a copy with black hair on it." And I said, "Well, we were busy. It was the Halloween season, and we were busy." And I said, "Well, I have some copies of that," which Captain Kirk was never a widely selling mask. I mean, if someone wanted to be Captain Kirk, they'd be themselves as Captain Kirk,
right?
Rather than wear a mask. And so we had a couple copies lying around, and we said, well, what we can do is we can airbrush the hair black. So Michael Myers is known more for the color hair that Captain Kirk had, but it's got some black in it.
Right. Huh.
And so that's, so we made some of those, and then from there, as history is always interpreted by the beholder or by the people involved, we painted the masks white, but then they say that they repainted them again. And I think they did, because there's some scenes in the movie where what they did is they painted it with a shoe polish type paint, and it was very toxic, or not toxic, but it was very it really attacked the latex. And you can see some scenes in the movie, especially where Michael's coming over the back of the couch where the mask is stretched, and you can see the mask almost wanting to come apart in the cheeks because of the kind of paint which is my belief,
right?
Because some of the paint was being stretched,
right?
And the latex was fatigued and under hot lights and full of perspiration and oil, which will also cause latex to deteriorate, and also the shape of the person's head that was inside especially the mask in the first Halloween movie, which probably was the most expressive. The guy did a great job of creating a character underneath that mask.
Right. But then in 1978, when the movie Halloween came out, trick-or-treaters wanted to be Michael Myers, but at that point the license on the Captain Kirk mask had expired, so you weren't able to make any more?
Well, I had a moment of being very ethical
in this town,
and I wouldn't do it. But later on, when push came to shove, and the demands for that increased, then I started making it, because nobody really has the rights to the character. It's a Captain Kirk mask. It was
out of Michael Myers' body.
It was then used as the shape, and it was kind of really in a no man's land, because there was nobody did it, or it wasn't inspired just by that movie. It had different roots from all over the place.
Right.
And so, unlike Star Wars, where George Lucas was so smart that he copyrighted all the characters, that was really not a case for movies. They believed if the movie was copyrighted, then everything in it was copyrighted, which ain't necessarily so.
Right.
And if you look at Universal Monster Mass today, they're really not held as a copyright, but more as a icon of the movie,
right.
of the studio.
Right.
They're considered something really different than a copyright, and it's very mysterious. Even with those masks, there's controversy because of Bela Lugosi's lawsuit or Bela Lugosi Jr.'s lawsuit over the Dracula mask, which was originally one of the Don Post masks. And there was a lawsuit about that, and in the state of California then, actors own the copyright of their own image.
Right.
Oh.
And so that's really
Wow.
changed. That's really come into this complicated mix of who owns what.
Yeah, we've got a friend who is a copyright attorney, and just trying to ask him a question, the rest of your night is taken up by his answer.
Yeah.
So
Right.
It goes on and on. Now, what would you say what was the biggest first seller for Don Post Studios? Was it the Universal masks?
Strangely, one of the biggest sellers for Don Post Studios was this skinhead wig that Don Post Studios used to make all the way back into the 50s. And then, though, as far as a mask, the Frankenstein was always a popular mask. My dad had a license to make a Frankenstein mask, which dated back into the 40s, the late 40s. And he made this full and half green Frankenstein masks, which were, couple dollar type thin latex masks. And so Frankenstein really was a big sensational selling mask. And that mask was made all the way through the 70s and into the 80s. And then, of course, these Universal masks that have become so famous, they were very famous. And the Wolfman was probably the best-selling of all of those. But out of all those masks, really the biggest seller was Tor Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through NFL football archives, and you'll see all the people in the stands wearing a Tor Johnson mask, and you see it over and over again in 1970 NFL films and even into the 80s, wearing a Tor Johnson mask.
Why would they wear it for NFL?
Have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Have no idea why they did, but it was
good business.
It was very popular. As a matter of fact, I took my youngest son to a Chicago White Sox game in about 1990. We were walking into the stadium, and I was thinking about my grandfather taking my dad to games in Kaminsky Park in Chicago in that time period, in as early as, let's say, 1915. And I'm thinking about that as I'm then taking my son into the park. And the minute we walked into the park, my son said, "Dad, look at the scoreboard." And I looked up at the scoreboard, and they were filming somebody wearing a Tor Johnson mask.
Wow.
Just the moment that I walked in there. And it was almost like that scene from Field of Dreams.
Okay.
Where they look at the scoreboard.
Oh, right.
So, and it sent chills down my back. but for Tor Johnson is probably an immensely attractive mask to the public.
Wow.
All right, now I'm dying to ask about Star Wars.
Yes,
so
I remember that.
Now, this was a huge part of my childhood. So how did Don Post Studios get the rights to make Star Wars masks back in 1977?
You know, now, historically, everybody has a different version. So I'm going to tell you my version of the story. And it was before Christmas. Now, Star Wars came out, what, in 70...
May of 1977.
77. So in Christmas of 1976, the year before, or before Star Wars came out, I got something in the mail from 20th Century Fox Studios, and it was this beautiful 8-page brochure. It said Star Wars on the outside of it, and you look inside of it, and you see this one shot of legions of stormtroopers, and you see another shot of Darth Vader, and Bill Malone and Bob Short and I were looking at it, and I said, "Oh man," I said, "that Darth Vader mask," I said, "even if this movie's not successful, we could probably sell as many as those as we do the Wolfman." And and everybody kind of thought, "Yeah, that's incredible." So there was magic in those characters. So I got really excited, and this is a Friday, but I decided that I would hold off calling him until Monday morning and saying yes. So it's because of that I believe that I was the first one to agree to a license of three-dimensional material. I thought, at one point, it was anything, but then somebody in publishing pointed out that they were doing things before the movie came out. So as far as three-dimensional, I think I was probably the first one to say yes. Now, that doesn't mean I was the first one to get a license, because they weren't handing out licenses until they had locked up someone to do toys. And it wasn't easy, because Mattel turned their nose up. Mm-hmm. And finally they got Kenner to agree to something. But by the time they got somebody to agree to something, it was so close to the movie coming out that Don Post Studio was probably the only ones who had something in Star Wars merchandise to release to this public who was very hungry to hold in their hand those images, the image of Darth Vader, or to touch a stormtrooper, or
Chewbacca and C-3PO,
and all of that. So we happened to be fortunate to be one of the first people able to do it. Don Post Studios was still, although a lot bigger, a small company. We had 3 telephone lines, which, you think you're pretty hot if you have 3 telephone lines, but we had 3 telephone lines. And before Star Wars came out, I called all my main distributors and main customers and talked to them about this film. And they all said, Star what?
Oh, you mean Star Trek?
Star what? Star Wars, W-A-R-S. Well, what's it about? Well, it's a science fiction movie, and I hadn't seen it yet, about that takes place in outer space. And they said, science fiction doesn't sell. And I got no response. Well, the day the movie came out to the public, the phone started ringing, and those 3 little flashing lights, they flashed day and night for over a year.
What over a year. Did you have available?
Well, we did Darth Vader, we did the Stormtrooper, we did Chewbacca, we did C-3PO.
Was it your choice, your personal choice to select these characters based on the
well,
images
we
you had
felt it was they were the main characters.
Right.
We had no idea of the extent of how how that would all turn out.
Now, when the cantina scene was such a big breakout in Star Wars, I know Don Post Studios just had made the Cantina band member. Was there a reason why they didn't do more of the Cantina creatures?
Well, the Cantina band member, we did that, yes. But the other characters we could not do because they were evidently they'd filmed a Cantina scene and George Lucas didn't like it. And he refilmed it and he went to Ric Baker for assistance. And Ric Baker, obviously now you have to know that this is all before the movie came out. And from what I hear, the people doing effects and everything, even in Europe, I mean, they would look at it like, this was just some little junk film that was going to be out in the theaters for a couple of weeks and that would be it. And I think it was probably the same with Ric Baker. He said, well, I got these characters, and I guess some of them were selected by George Lucas to be in the film. I'm sorry, Rick, but I think you made a mistake. Ric Baker was not interested in cutting a deal to allow those Cantina band members to be part of the Star Wars merchandise. And I think some of the toy companies, they started making that stuff, and they had to desist because, George Lucas really didn't have the rights to those characters. And I know there was an attempt to rectify that because, Ric Baker's stuff is so great, and they fit so well in with the rest of that. But that was not to be. I guess Ric Baker has enough $1 million where he's not going to miss the other $1 million he would have made off the licensing.
Right. Did George Lucas ever work with Don Post Studios directly and go over the characters they thought for a future? These would be good masks to produce?
After the movie came out, at one point, and I can't exactly remember where it was, there was a get-together with licensees and everything at the Egg Company. The Egg Company was a brick building that was across from Universal Studios. It had the name the Egg Company because originally it was an egg processing plant. It was owned by George Lucas. It's gone now. It's now part of the Freeway. But George Lucas owned that building, and they had it fixed up. It was really very pretty office building.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, and they had a little party in there. And that's the first time I met George Lucas, and I said to him, you made my favorite movie of all time, American Graffiti. And his reaction was about the same as yours. He laughed. But I think over the years, I think I'm approaching 50 words exchanged between George Lucas and I. And, during the last times that I met him and talked to him, I did talk to him, but there was a lawyer standing on either side of us, because I'm sure that they didn't want anybody to say, well, I talked to George Lucas and he said it'd be okay if I did such and such.
Right.
So, there wasn't going to be any of that. And so, I mean, someone as special as George Lucas and as powerful as he is, he has to be protected. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. But, I always felt like I would have liked to have been a little kid with him and played with him and been able to feed off of his imagination in play.
Right.
It would be very cool.
Let's take a break from our discussion with Don Post Jr. to hear an important PSA about selecting just the right costume from everyone's favorite protocol droid, C-3PO.
Who should I be this year? Mickey? Donald? Perhaps Goofy? Yes, Artu, you are so right. Maybe something closer to home. Something like Iron Man. Oh, hello. I am C-3PO, and this is my counterpart, R2-D2. We are here once again at Skywalking Through Neverland to bring you some more important Halloween safety advice. Today we will look at selecting an appropriate and safe costume. Firstly, plan a costume that is bright and reflective for greater visibility. Make sure your costume is short enough to prevent tripping, entanglement, or contact with flame. Please obtain a flashlight with fresh batteries to safely travel in the night. Glow sticks may also be an option. Because masks and helmets can limit or even block eyesight, just ask any of those dreaded Imperial stormtroopers. Consider non-toxic makeup and decorative hats as safer alternatives. Yes, Artu, I'm sure they do them in your size. If a lightsaber, vibro axe, or electro staff is a part of your costume, make sure it is not too sharp or long. You may be easily hurt by these accessories if you stumble or happen to trip. You may even lose a hand. Poor Master Luke. Oh dear. Well, Artu, I think that about covers everything. Join myself and Artu next week for some more Halloween safety advice brought to you from Skywalking Through Neverland and the American Academy of Pediatrics. We encourage all you Skywalkers to send us pictures of your costumes for all to enjoy. You can send them to share@skywalkingthrough-neverland.com, facebook.com/skywalkingthrough-neverland, or tweet them at skywalkingpod. Now Artu wants me to remind you about the most important safety tip of all. You stepped on my line. I was supposed to say, never land on Alderaan. You mindless philosopher, why I choose to degrade myself working with a glorified plumber is beyond my programming. I'll hear no more of it.
And now, back with Don Post Jr. as we hear about the company that made Halloween worth dressing up for. And at what point, when you saw The Empire Strikes Back, who was in charge of selecting which characters for that film and Return of the Jedi to make into full head masks?
That would be me. We tried to pick characters that we thought would be meaningful. People have asked me about Boba Fett. Boba Fett made a dramatic appearance in the movie, but he wasn't in it that much.
Right.
And he was difficult to do. I mean, he had all these sharp angles and difficult visor and everything, area to see out of. And frankly, none of us who were doing the creative there saw it as being significant.
Right.
It's only later on that Boba Fett becomes more significant, I think.
Right.
But you have to understand, even with a sequel, you're not going to expect the kind of response that Star Wars gets. there has never been anything like Star Wars. There probably will never be anything again like Star Wars. There'll be something else, but it won't be anything like we imagine.
Yeah, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and this is a special jewel of our time, and it is, and that's evidenced by the fact that here we are in 2016, and we're talking about it.
Yeah, who'd ever think?
Which is really, from the first time I heard about Star Wars, it's probably 40 years later.
Right.
And we're still talking about it.
There was one joke shop in Boston who I got all my Don Post Studios masks from, and they once called me up and said, we're going to get the new catalog in next week.
And what's the name of that? What was the name of that place?
Max Joke Shop.
Okay.
Right in the heart of downtown Boston. And I drove my mother crazy every single day. Did we get the call? Can we go into town? It was like building up to Christmas. And then we got the call, come on in, the catalog is here. So I drove my family crazy about getting in the car and racing into Boston. And it really was like a Christmas Eve when I could run into the store and open up the catalog and see what Don Post Studios had to offer for Return of the Jedi.
Right. Well, we were, back during the first movie, we were doing a little subsidiary company and mail ordering the sale of some of the Star Wars masks. And I remember one of them that came in, one of the orders, was this check. And it didn't really look like an adult's handwriting. So I called and I talked to this woman, the mother, and I said, did you write this check? And she said, no. And I said, I'm not going to cash it because obviously I think your son wanted the mask so bad that he stole one of your checks and filled it out and sent it to us to buy one of the masks.
So, that's a smart kid.
Yeah, I hope he's okay today.
He's probably somewhere in LA County jail.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And this is some kid, I think, on the East Coast. And I told the mother, I said, we're not going to process this order or cash the check or anything.
The fact that he found your address and knew enough to send it there.
Right. And anyway, I mean, that was the kind of, let's call it enthusiasm that people had for this merchandise. It's amazing. You know, it's amazing to think that I was able to get involved with this because I'm not a big corporation. I was never a big corporation. But all we really wanted to do was to remain somewhat faithful to what the characters really were and to provide something that people could touch, that well represented what the characters really were.
Now, how many Darth Vader helmets do you think you sold in that first or second year?
I know in the first year, even though we had merchandise, we weren't really prepared for the impact of Star Wars. And so we made molds to produce the Darth Vader, for instance, and the Stormtrooper in rotationally cast PVC. We made that first year about 7,000 Darth Vader masks. I know we could have sold a lot more. By the time the second year came around, we had an injection mold to make injection molded plastic ones. And we sold, during that second year, we sold over 70,000. Now, I would guess that during the first year, we could have probably sold 250,000 of them if we would have had them.
Oh, easily, yeah. Was Darth Vader the biggest seller out of the Stormtrooper, 3PO, and Chewbacca?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, back then, the Darth Vader mask went for $43, and I looked that up in comparison to what the inflation rate would be. It was $162.
Yeah.
In today's dollar. So I want to thank my mother for spending that kind of money buying me a Darth Vader helmet, because as a kid, you didn't really have any sense of how much $1 was, especially as an 8-year-old kid. But she bought me that Darth Vader helmet, and that was like my prized possession.
Well, I would like to thank your mother and all the other mothers all the other 70,000 mothers who would spend that kind of money for a Darth Vader mask. And I, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it.
At what point did you really understand how big of an influence Don Post Studios had on Halloween?
I really don't understand it. I mean, not even today. I really don't really have a real understanding of that. I'm not your typical kind of businessman. I have a lot more appreciation for what George Lucas accomplished than I do for the business end of it.
Right.
I feel a feeling that I would really always like to let him know that I'm thankful that I was able to be involved.
The man has changed many, many lives because of that one movie.
Yeah, that has changed lives, as impactful things will. And George Lucas has. He's created something that everything just fell into place, and it's just an amazing accomplishment.
Now, do you have any idea how many masks Don Post Studios had created from beginning to end? Is there a catalog somewhere?
How many different characters?
Different masks.
Well, there is. I've never looked at it as trying to count the number of styles of masks. So I wouldn't even dare count the number of it. But you have to realize that that's over a period of 75 years that all that creativity has been going on. It used to be, just to give you an example, I think towards the middle and end of Don Post Studios, more variety was made, because it used to be that a product life, the life of a product, would be like 10 years. And now the product life is around 3 or less years. So in the end, there was a lot more different styles being created than there were in overall.
Right.
But, for instance, going back to Tor Johnson was almost always made all the way from the mid-'60s. Tor Johnson was always made up into this century. So, and I would always look at that mask and think, what is it about this character that makes it so popular? Because I want to make several more of those at least. And you can never reduplicate it. What is it about Darth Vader? You can't reduplicate it.
Yeah.
What is it about Frankenstein? You can't reduplicate it.
Yeah, people ask George Lucas all the time, what made Star Wars Star Wars? He's like, if I knew that, I'd make 1 billion more of these movies.
That's exactly it. And that's exactly it, because it's just something where
it just touches
everything comes together. Right. Everything, like you say, touches people.
Do you have a personal favorite mask?
I probably have several favorite masks. I think one of them would be Frankenstein 2000. I really liked that mask.
Is this the one with the scar on it?
No, it's the one with the plastic dome and the exposed brain.
Okay, right.
And it was made in the 70s, and I remember when we made the first one of those, I put it on and I wore it home. I drove home with it. Which is really illegal, but I did it anyway.
And I found that out the hard way because I was wearing a Tusken Raider mask. I just made the costume, and I just bought the mask from Mac's Joke Shop, and I was driving along, and the cop pulled up. I thought, hey, he can't give a ticket to a Tusken Raider.
Well, you know, this
he did.
Actually, there's a law against masquerading. Basically, it's illegal to wear a mask.
Oh, don't come to our house.
In public, because you cannot be recognized as yourself. Yeah. And that was, on one occasion, pointed out to my dad and John Chambers. It was pointed out to them by the FBI. And they said, and they told them, do not ever let anyone leave the studio in the makeup.
Really?
That's what they said, yes.
Did they have a garrison outside making sure this didn't happen?
No, there wasn't, but it was an incident that took place where this con man came, and he said he was going to a class reunion and that there was going to be a reward of $10,000 for the person who was last recognized, and that he got a job as a waiter, and he wanted to change his appearance so nobody'd recognize him, and he'd win the prize, and he'd give the money to John Chambers, my dad, and a hair person named Ziggy Geike. So they did this whole thing, and they took pictures and everything, and it turned out that the guy said at the end, he said, well, let me get that film. I'll get it developed for you because I'd like copies of all the pictures you took, and then I'll put it in the mail and send it back to you. So they did that, and the guy walked away without paying a penny. He went to Las Vegas and cashed a phony check for $50,000. The FBI came back to them and said, do not ever let anyone leave. And he was he was wanted by the FBI and Interpol, and he was an international criminal. And I don't know whether he was ever caught, but he did con those guys over that incident.
Not that I'm condoning that kind of behavior, but that's very smart thinking.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of criminals who, if they probably applied their creativity to legitimate enterprise, they'd probably even do better than they do with crime.
Oh my goodness. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to ask you about one of the original Star Wars masks, and that's the Chewbacca mask.
Bob Short did those sculptures, and the first sculpture was of Chewie had his mouth open, and it was very dramatic, but the people at Lucasfilm thought that it was too threatening, and they didn't like seeing the teeth and everything, so we ended up doing another version where he had his mouth closed. Both are really good versions. But, and it's a shame that Chewie couldn't have been showing his teeth and that familiar growl. And really, if you have a copy of one of the first ones...
Oh, my goodness.
You have something special.
Right. That was one of the more expensive masks when I was a kid, so I couldn't get that one until much, much later on.
How many were made of that original?
I would say there's probably less than 300.
Wow. Didn't Lucasfilm have to approve that design before it went out?
Well, you know what? In the beginning, approvals were not as complicated.
Right.
When I got the license for the original Star Wars, the letter was sent to me by a man named Mark Pevers, who I very much appreciate. Mark was the director of licensing for 20th Century Fox. This was before really Lucasfilm took over that marketing. And at the time, you'd walk into a building and it was a single office. Before that, and really the reason that we got Star Wars is because of our performance with Planet of the Apes and the mask we made for that. And so licensing at the time was just a little scrap to Fox Studios. And then by the time Star Wars came out, it was done by one man. And then they added another guy named Rand Marlis over at Fox Studios. So there was 2 men doing licensing and a secretary. And now if you go over to Fox or Universal or anybody, there'll be 2 or 3 stories of a building that is full of people doing every minute detail of licensing.
Right.
So, originally with Star Wars, Charlie Lippincott would kind of be the one given the yay or nay on licensing. So that's how impactful Star Wars was. Because before that, maybe Disney had a staff that did licensing. But now everyone does, and it's become a business within a business where at the time, in the 70s still, it was not something that was really considered by anybody except maybe Universal and Disney.
Wow. So much history.
Yeah.
Right.
With all...
Well, it's kind of like you were there at the beginning, before it really became before merchandising became a known part of this whole business.
And now it's flip-flopped because now the merchandising is done first, then they'll make the movie.
Well, and that's really unfortunate, isn't it?
Right. We've seen our fair share of that.
Yes, we have.
Now, before we wrap things up, is there a way for our Skywalker listeners to get in touch with you in social media or...
Be at an event?
Well, I'll probably be at the Monsterpalooza next year, which I think is about March, and it'll probably be in Pasadena. So I'll be there. Other places, every once in a while, I may end up at the Rancho Obi-Wan. If there's some place that somebody wants me to be, they can probably get a hold of me through you. I'd be happy to go anywhere and see and talk to people. We're kind of speculating, some friends and I, on this Monsterpalooza, having a couple booths and bringing some stuff from the Universal era and some masks. I'm thinking that I might bring a Boba Fett and Stormtrooper along with that, the original or the full-size prop replicas.
Well, what about this Halloween? What are your plans for this Halloween night?
I don't really have plans for this Halloween. In my life, what it turned out to be is I would get so exhausted by the time Halloween came around that, we'd hand out candy and do some stuff in front of the house and everything, and make costumes for my kids to wear around, which we did some stuff which was kind of classic throughout the neighborhood.
Well, thank you very much for this discussion. And as you can tell, this meant a lot to me because I grew up with your studio, Don Post Studios, Star Wars masks and creature masks. So I had a lot of fun talking to you. So thank you very much.
I always considered when we made masks, and when I'd tell my crew, and when we were doing it here domestically, I'd say, you have to remember that each one of these masks will be going to an individual, and that individual will want it to be correct. And so I would like to thank you, because without you, there wouldn't be a me. So you're all of you who have appreciated what has been done are as important to me as those items are to you. So thank you. Thank all of you.
What more can you say?
Yeah, other than Happy Halloween.
And to you.
Now, we had talked a long time with Mr. Post about some of the studio's background and some other fun stories that didn't really fit the Halloween theme that we were going for the body of the interview. So to hear those stories, we put them at the very end with the bloopers and outtakes. So give a listen. And with that, let's get into our Skywalker shoutouts.
Shoutouts, Skywalker shoutouts. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who has tweeted out? Shout out. Who has photoballed? Shout out. Who has shared a post? Shout out.
All right. Well, we love it when you tweet at us. As always, we are at Skywalking Pod, and a few of our Skywalkers did just that. We have at Kilted Jedi Rick, who is Ric Peralta. He tweeted, "Loved hearing that first ever opening." This is about our previous show, which was our third anniversary celebration.
Our third anniversary show where we got bits from our first recording and sprinkled them through the last episode.
Yes. So he tweets, "Loved hearing that first ever opening. What a difference 3 years has made.
Oh, yeah.
Hashtag happy anniversary. Japanese Admiral Piet." And he was actually responding to the what is that?
Foreign dub contest.
The foreign dub contest.
You know,
but
we'll just change that to Admiral Mahdi.
Okay.
I'm sure that's what he meant, right?
Yes.
Right, Rick?
Yes. All right. And at Mental Madness, Christopher Marino, he tweeted, "Best thing about hashtag Rogue Friday was listening to Skywalking Pod to and from my Toys R Us." Aww.
Oh.
So that was high praise, so we had to give him a shout out because how awesome.
Now, was he listening to our show or to our Periscope?
Oh, I'm sure it was our show. Well, I actually don't know. It could have been our Periscope because we were Periscoping that evening. All right.
Either way, thank you, Christopher.
Thank you so much. And now I want to thank Sandra, who is our fabulous social media manager for Fangirls Going Rogue. She let me know this week about the fabulous new Star Wars Half Marathon light side medals. They are new designs, and they are fun because now they're embracing the light side at Disneyland. So the back side of the half marathon medal is now Han and Leia. So, of course, I was over the moon about that, and I was so happy then. But then I saw the 10K medal. And what design is that, Richard?
Does this give you a hint?
It was BB-8. I'm so excited. Anything with BB-8. Oh, my God. Okay.
Wait a minute. Tatooine Breeze just said, "My kids love the Chopper medal."
Was Chopper the kids medal?
Oh. Which medal was that? How do we miss that? It's for the kids. It's for the kids, he says. Right on.
Yeah, the kids races?
Right on Scope. Right on Periscope. He says it's for the kids.
Okay.
All right,
I've
so
never seen that.
Great. I want to get a Chopper medal.
Oh, it is Chopper.
Oh, look at that.
It was like, the picture is like way...
There's a lot of reflection coming off of it.
All right. Yeah.
Now, is that metal or is that vinyl?
Actually, no, the vinyl. So the kids' races are still vinyl, but the 5K medals have now become metal.
Actual metal, right.
Actual metals, and so this year it's a U-Wing, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which we're not going to get that one, actually.
No, we're going to go right to the 10K and the half so we can do the whole challenge.
And then we still don't know what what the light side challenge medal looks like. So that could be different too. But
they're holding out.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to. All right, now let's tell you what Eric Warren on our Facebook group has to say. Hey, fellow Skywalkers. It's a beautiful morning at Disneyland. And he shows himself wearing his Skywalker of the Week shirt. Thank you, Eric. Great picture, great selfie of you in your shirt. So, if you're wearing your Skywalking Through Neverland shirt or Skywalker of the Week shirt,
or BB-8
shirt, let us know. Take a pic of yourself and send it over.
Yeah, we love that. It's we just find it so amazing that you guys take the time to tweet these things to us or post or anything
family.
Like that.
They're
yeah,
family.
I just think it's amazing.
All right, do you know what's really amazing also?
Our Skywalker of the Week.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I did. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I saw you breathing to say it.
That was my line.
Okay.
Quentin Alvard. Quentin Alvard.
All right, so you're wondering why Clinton was nominated and chosen as the Skywalker of the Week? Because of a Facebook post he had put on our group that says, like Star Wars, Sure you do. Well, my friends Richard and Sarah do a great podcast about that very thing. Oh, and Disney too. They are celebrating the 3rd anniversary of Skywalking Through Neverland. Check it out. He is a podcaster, and his show is Comedy Forecast. So tune in there. Another great show that everyone should be listening to, because very, very funny. Love our funny shows.
Yeah, so check that out at comedy4cast.com. This week we are talking about the 2nd episode of Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, the Holocrons of Fate, in which Maul returns to complete his dangerous plan, but the Ghost Crew gets in the way. So Maul, he finally obtains both the Jedi and Sith Holocron and combines the two sides together, and here we hear an amazing musical opus from Kevin Kiner. So this week StarWars.com also released that particular track, combining the holocrons as the audio cue. So we're going to get into this.
I'm so glad they chose this cue to release, because it ties in to last season of Star Wars Rebels.
Yes, it does, but you're getting ahead of us. You're
I know.
Getting ahead.
Just kind of giving my initial thoughts.
I know. Oh, okay.
And how excited I am about this cue.
Well, yeah, let's talk about our initial thoughts. We were sitting on the couch, right? And this cue came on, and, this was happening. The holocrons were combining. And I remember I turned to you and said, this music is getting so epic.
Oh, yeah, and it is. And like I was saying last time, it's hard for me to separate the visuals from the audio. Now that we're doing this segment, my head is more tuned in to the music cues.
Oh, nice.
So I am hearing a little bit more than before. However, seeing the visuals, my brain is struggling to what to focus on.
Right. Well, that's why, so listening to this audio cue, you can really separate it, and just listening to the audio cue, I heard things that I did not hear while watching the episode, just like you. So, shall we get into it?
Oh, please.
Okay, so let's start out with a little bit of the instrumentation, because I think this is really telling. So we begin with a vocal whisper. Not even an instrument, but vocal whispers. So, what does this remind you of?
Well, seeing how it was Darth Maul,
Uh-huh.
Of course, I was reminded of Duel of the Fates.
Yeah. What is it? Razana. And I couldn't tell what they were saying in the vocal whisper, but it totally brought me back to that.
Right.
So let's get into a little bit more of this track. Now, after the whisper, we hear a single harp and string instruments, the bass and the cello, and they're playing by themselves, like a single instrument, which is always interesting because when an instrument plays a solo, it almost allows you to get into the mind of a single character a little better.
For me, what really appealed to me was that the fact that it was a very light, plucking sound.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear the foreboding cellos, was that?
Yeah, so
cello?
Like the bass and the cello come in kind of low, and then you hear all the strings join in, violas and violins.
Right. But now the strings take over from the heavier sound, which gives it more of a hopeful
bent?
meaning.
Okay, so that's what you heard. So you think the beginning is more foreboding?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have the Sith holocron and the Jedi holocron, and they're both coming together. So you will hear that the light plucking sound with the foreboding cello sound, and then the light takes over, which gives it more of a hopeful meaning.
Right. Yeah. Hopeful. Yeah.
Which is what this scene is all about, as we'll find out in a couple of seconds.
I like that. I like that take on it, Richard. So, but now, for nearly the first minute, it's all strings. Now, in the Star Wars Rebels Kiner music pantheon, what does this remind you of?
Well, going back to last season, I would say it reminds me of Journey into the Star Cluster from the Legends of the Lasat episode.
Exactly. Now, melodically, it's not much like it, but the fact that he uses that instrumentation, it's like Kevin Kiner's way of signifying this is the Force being used.
Well, even with some of the chorus as well.
Yeah, because the Legends of, or Journey into the Star Cluster did have the chorus there too. So yeah, you're right.
And what thematic meaning did you see between the two episodes here?
Well, it was the use of the Force. I mean, in Legends of the Lasat, they're using like a different part of the Force, which is why it sounds so different.
The Ashla.
Yeah, exactly. But here, this is the Force that we know, but it's doing something that we've never seen before.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
So I think maybe that's why he reverted to those instrumentation.
Right. I saw it as a whole different meaning from what you have. And of course, you ask 100 different people, they'll get 100 different answers. But like I was saying earlier, for me, it was all about hope.
Okay.
Because what does Darth Maul say?
Or Maul at the end?
Oh, yes. It's not Darth Maul anymore.
Yeah. Maul at the end of this episode?
Yeah. Well,
he says...
He asks, what do you want?
You know what I want. I want to destroy the Sith.
And he asks Maul, what do you want?
As for me, I seek something much simpler, yet equally elusive.
What's that?
Hope.
Just like in the Legends of the Lasat, it's Zeb. He's finally seeing...
Well, there's hope for his people.
There's more Lasat out there, so there is now that hope for him and his kind.
Right, because they were scattered to the winds, the Lasat. So yeah,
and like always, Star Wars always has the overarching umbrella of hope.
Right. Oh, what a good... that's so cool.
Well, thank you. Did a lot of research on that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've gone into the instrumentation. Now, let's get into a little of the melody here, because towards the end of this track, I'm hearing the horns play the first 3 notes of Kylo Ren's theme. So here, let's listen to that. Here's Kylo Ren's theme. So yeah, those first 3 notes are the same. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Kevin Kiner was like copying Kylo Ren's theme. It might just have been floating around in his subconscious, but honestly, the overarching thing here is the fact that he's using the tritone. Now, do you know what the tritone is?
I don't know.
Okay, well, it is this chord, or these 2 notes right here. The interval right there. See how it sounds very dissonant?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound dissonant to your ear?
Explain to me what dissonant means.
It means that it, like, okay, harmony, like, here's a third.
Okay.
See how that sounds nice and happy?
Right.
Right? And then there's a 5th. So that's nice open chord right there. So that's like Appalachian Spring. That's a lot of, like, John Williams uses that a lot. And then the tritone. So, okay, compare this to this. See how that kind of sounds?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the second one sounds more discordant.
Is there nothing an iPhone can't do?
I know, I'm playing GarageBand on my iPhone here. So that right there. sounds like discord. Well, that is the dreaded tritone, or what's known as the devil in music. Ooh. Dun, 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 dun. That particular interval, it creates dissonance, and it was avoided or used very sparingly by composers and musicians from the Middle Ages all the way through to the classical period in music. Now, it wasn't until the Romantic era, which is about the 1800s, onward that it's been embraced. And it's used to kind of portray that dissonance. So, to give you an example, even TV shows like The Twilight Zone uses it. The Simpsons.
Yeah, I can hear The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
Yeah, and then the Munsters theme songs as well. And then a very famous one is from West Side Story, from Leonard Bernstein's Maria.
Maria, I've just met a girl named Maria.
Which is interesting because Maria is technically a love song, but we all know that in West Side Story, it doesn't end well.
No spoilers. I know the movie's over 50 years old, but no spoilers.
So the fact that he's using that dissonant chord both in Kylo Ren's theme and now here in this Holocron theme, for lack of a better word, it's, saying that, maybe we shouldn't be combining these Holocrons, or watch out, you might get what you pay for. That kind of, it's a warning.
Right. And there's maybe going back to Kylo Ren, that's Kevin Kiner's way of saying there's hope for him.
Right.
In an upcoming storyline.
Wait, what? Why do you say that?
Well, if he's using the Kylo Ren theme with some freedom to that, maybe a little bit of a callback, maybe that's his way of saying that there's going to be hope for Kylo Ren and his turning to the light side of the Force.
I actually don't think he's consciously playing Kylo Ren's theme there. I think he's just playing on the fact of that tritone chord, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I just think that nothing is done by accident.
Okay.
And everything is there for a particular reason. Maybe that's his way of trying to tell us something.
Perhaps. We don't know.
King of the spoilers, Mr. Kevin Kiner.
Yeah.
All right, now, I did notice that these two themes, Journey into the Star Cluster and Holocrons of Fate, were very similar, but this one didn't really have that Philip Glass sound to it.
No.
The way that Journey into the Star Clusters did.
Yeah, this one had a more traditional beat and instrumentation, I would say. So overall, I mean, I think Kevin Kiner's music has been getting more and more epic, and I can't wait to see where it goes this season. But what did you think, Skywalkers? Did you hear any themes in there that were missing or anything else like that? Please tweet at us at SkywalkingPod or post in our Facebook group.
Now I really can't wait to see next week's episode, The Antilles Extraction, and see how he's going to roll in themes from other past episodes of Rebels.
Yeah, and now with the release of Star Wars Rebels Season 1 and Season 2 albums, I'm really excited. I'm going to listen to those and start making notes here.
And perhaps he'll give us another spoiler foreshadow.
Oh, you know what? You think that maybe this spells hope for Kylo Ren, but using Kylo Ren's theme within and Ezra's involved in this, maybe that does mean Ezra is Snoke.
Or maybe that he's giving hope that Dennis Lawson will return without thinking this is boring. Sorry, had to be said. All right, so until next time, do you think they'll ever bring back Biggs?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Kevin, let us know in a secret melody.
Skywalking through Neverland.
Now, before we wrap up this week's episode, we wanted to tell you Skywalkers about some exciting news about the line for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Last year, one of the highlights of the whole Force Awakens experience was the line.
And this was no ordinary line. This was a non-stop party organized by liningup.net. So now they are at it again, and here to give us the scoop is Ric Peralta, father of the Secret Keeper.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Richard. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, thanks for coming on and telling us what's going on and how we can plan our December.
Of course. We're really excited to kind of be putting our final pieces in place here, and we're ready to start making some official announcements. So my first thought was to let you guys know and make you our official outlet here again.
Oh, good deal.
Exciting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, Rogue One opens up December 16th. When will the line begin?
So we're actually looking to do a much smaller, kind of more fun and loose experience this time. The idea being that the saga films and the story films will definitely be treated differently in the theaters and also by us in line. So we're doing, rather than the 12 days of Star Wars this time around, we're doing something much shorter, sweeter, and with a few little interesting twists for you guys. So our plan is actually to do exactly 48 hours. So assuming that the movie is going to open actually on the 15th at 7 p.m., similar to the way it did for The Force Awakens, we will be starting our line on Tuesday, the 13th at 7 p.m.
Ah, good deal. All right.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's funny when a movie opens one date, it really means like 3 days earlier.
Right? Well, so since it's only going to be 48 hours, are you going to be counting hours? Like, is everyone going to be putting in hours?
Very good question. That is actually one of the big changes for this. You know, we've done 4 major Star Wars lines now, and they've always had minimum hours, except this one. We are actually going to do instead, obviously we want people to come out and spend as much time as they can, but there'll be no minimums required. We are tossing around a few ideas of maybe for those that want to spend some time and actually keep track of it, and maybe having a different kind of donation system set up for them. But the big change for us is that we really want to bring this back to the way we did things a little bit before, in that it's always been about our work with Starlight Children's Foundation. And so we are going to be doing, instead of minimum hours, we're going to be doing minimum donations. And everything will be built around having a donation tagged to your ticket, and that's going to get you into that house. And there's probably going to be some tiers to that pricing to maybe incentivize some bonuses that might come in to play a little bit later on.
All right, so the big question now is, which theater will it be? The El Capitan or the, I know I'll get this wrong, Grauman's TCL IMAX Chinese
don't get
theater.
us in trouble with our friends here.
No, they're our best friends, but I wish they could just shorten up their name.
It is a mouthful, but it will be, again, at the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX.
Okay, got that, Richard? The TCL Chinese Theater
IMAX.
So get Grauman's out of your head.
Yes, indeed.
That's so 1999.
Yeah, it really is. Because all the way, I mean, by 02, it was already gone. It was no longer Grauman's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have my original flip cell phone, too. So what was the deciding factor, if there even was one, between the Chinese theater and El Capitan?
Well, you know, I think it really came down to the fact that we already had a really good established relationship with them. They've worked with us, you know, for 4 films now. And while the El Capitan did certainly offer us an awful lot for The Force Awakens, you know, we already had our setup. And again, after that last time, it was clear that there was nothing that really truly compares with having the opportunity to sleep on those footprints. So we will be back to take our naps.
Did the El Cap come back with a counter offer?
You know, we didn't really go too deep into looking at counteroffers this time. We kind of went with what felt right. The Chinese has been our home, and we're doing it instead of having a different theater for the story films. Instead, we're just going to do a slightly different kind of line.
Okay.
What does that mean? Oh, just for the shorter time?
Yeah, shorter time. You know, I mean, you go back to our prequels, we were doing 6 weeks. Already, The Force Awakens felt like a very abbreviated line to many of us. We're used to much, much longer than not even a full 2 weeks. And then, of course, now we're cutting it down to just two days. And then, of course, not actually having a logbook to keep track of hours. That's huge. That's like a revelation for us. And that's part of what we're going to do to try to make this a little more relaxed, a little more fun. You know, it's come down, hang out. You don't have to worry about clocking in. You just need to worry about getting that minimum donation in to get your ticket.
I don't know about you, but I had a great time. It was a lot of fun last year.
It's an addictive experience. You guys, even with you saw it and you were down there. You know what it feels like firsthand. But even both my family, my mother-in-law, who's not even a Star Wars fan, became addicted. She wanted to stay down there with us just as much as we were there. And there were plenty of other. I saw family members for other line members that came down just to support their son or daughter. And next thing you knew, they were hanging out more than the kid.
Wow.
It's an addictive experience.
Wow. So you said that this line is based on a minimum donation. What is that minimum donation?
That is one of our details that we're still kind of hammering out. Okay. Basically looking at probably a relatively small minimum donation for each ticket. And then, again, maybe tiering up to get some bonuses. So, for example, maybe if you do a larger donation, it will include your T-shirt or your line badge so that you get all those bonuses that go along. Obviously, we will be doing the shirts and badges again. Badges, like last time, were critical to allowing us to have theater access 24 hours. So that will, again, be something that we're going to do. So you'll get to have that opportunity to collect again. I know, Richard, how you love to collect. So one more thing to add with all your marathon medals.
Yeah, and it's functional too.
Yes, indeed.
It fits right into my collection. Now, what did you guys learn last year for The Force Awakens that you'll apply this year for Rogue One?
Well, one thing was we learned that the last time it was so different for us in so many respects. One, obviously, the modern filmmaking experience of reserve seating and online ticket sales, it was something we weren't entirely sure how we were going to handle. And while it came off relatively smoothly in front of the camera, behind the camera, things were a little rough at times. We definitely learned a lot about maybe having too many voices in terms of our organizational structure. And so we tried to streamline that a little bit this time. Certainly we have pretty much all of our old friends and families coming back again. We're still that same old group, but the final decision-making process is from a slightly smaller body this time.
So yeah, not as many heads.
Fewer
not as many
cooks in the
chefs
kitchen.
in the kitchen.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, it really came down to I guess you could throw in your Star Wars quote here. I am not a committee. It really felt like there were times where there was too many things that required quorums, and it just made it really, really hard to get everyone online at the same time to discuss a topic. And this way, we're streaming it down. We're going to a smaller group. We actually just officially posted our kind of launch here with our team leaders, so you guys can see that and share it if you like. And it's a much smaller, cleaner crew. We've all worked together on some level before, but either this previous line or the lines before that, and we're ready to roll.
Now, when we were talking about a week or two ago, you were saying that the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX had some more incentives this time around.
That's exactly what was my question, actually. Yeah, because you said that the TCL was pleased with the line last year.
Oh, they were ecstatic with the way it worked out. And actually, almost as soon as it was over with, they started reaching out to us again. Both even on Twitter, like public posts saying, we're holding your spot in line, and all the way through to our personal meetings with the management there, and even higher up the chain into the IMAX structure, having real communications, and they really want us back. We're thrilled to be back, and that's part of the reason that it wasn't much of a debate, honestly, for us. We kind of knew that's where we're coming home to again.
So what new incentives are they offering?
In terms of our incentives, one of the things that we're talking about, and this is not locked in stone yet, so take it with your little bit of grain of salt, but one of the potential perks of if you donate a little bit more than your ticket might be including like a black tie gala dinner. So we might be doing something like that. The theater has offered us their VIP space to use for this purpose. And so we're really inclined to make that happen. It's just, again, kind of piecing together some of the logistics and also schedules, because there is the potential for maybe a handful of celebrity guests to maybe join us in there.
Ooh, how fun.
Can you name 1 or 2 or 5?
Well, let's just say that they're probably going to be names that you know.
Such as?
You can keep fishing, my friend, but until I have names locked down in frame, it's an NDA. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then who is the voice of Chopper?
I still don't know.
You know what? And I believe him too. I know that Eliza will not crack no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh boy, she gets asked all the time, not even just from you guys, and she will not crack. Even at Long Beach Comic Con, people are asking her.
Oh, wow. She's a little celebrity.
I just hope she doesn't forget.
We keep asking her if we think, hey, do you even really know? And she says, yes. She gets all defensive, and yeah, she's really proud of that. I'm hoping that now that Dave Filoni's moving up the chain a little bit, that maybe he'll allow her to release this, and we can get through our connections some she can say now.
Oh.
Dibs. We got dibs on this one.
Right?
All right, well, when she is ready, so are we.
Excellent. You'll be first in line.
Now, I wanted to ask you about a rumor, but was it a possibility that we were going to be able to sleep inside the theater this time around?
No, that's never been an option.
Oh.
Okay. It's that's just it's a space that needs to be protected, and it's not safe to maintain that place, to have who knows what kind of foods and drinks on the floors, and it was never really an option.
Okay. Because as much fun as it was to sleep on the footprints of R2, 3PO, Vader, George Lucas, and Harrison Ford, around 3 in the morning it got a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's little.
Well, you just need to bring a thicker sleeping mat this time, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. R2's footprint is still in the middle of Sarah's back. I don't know how it got there. I don't want to know how it got there.
Well, what I loved was every night that people were fighting over which footprints they wanted to sleep on. And, people were running off to try to get on top of Clooney or on top of Marilyn Monroe. And, yeah, it was kick.
Well, what I loved...
Rick, this is the family show, okay?
What I loved was when we were all kind of sitting in the forecourt during the afternoon or something, and a big tourist bus would come by of people from other countries, and they'd want to go right to where you were sitting playing a game to look at whatever footprint was there.
Like, oh man, bad timing for you. Yeah. Bad timing for you.
Yeah, in particular, there was a couple things that really surprised me, because again, I've done the lines here before, but we've never actually been in the forecourt for the lines. Right. And apparently there is a Chinese director that has his footprints in there, and he's incredibly popular for every Chinese tourist that visited, and we happen to be on top of it.
Yes.
Every day.
One time, I just remember they surrounded me. This entire, 50 people, just kind of surrounded me, were taking pictures, kind of bumping into me. It's like, they didn't even let me get up first.
It was nuts. And and we actually became almost kind of de facto tour guides. The random tourists that were not on a bus would come in looking for something. Who are you looking for? Oh, let me show you. And we'll walk them over to the right spot.
Now, before we wrap things up here, if there were any Skywalkers who were on the fence about waiting in line, what would you tell them to push them over the edge?
It is a life-altering experience. And I know that sounds loaded and cliche, but I kid you not, every single line, this one yet to have the actual date set, but every single line has led to a wedding.
Oh.
This is the place, the ultimate date night. If you're trying to find that special someone, come on down the line.
Wow. And you know what? For cosplayers, are you going to do the similar thing like you did last year, where if you cosplay for a couple hours or something, you can any money that people give you will be towards donations, and it's just
definitely. Any people that come down to join us, of course we had David Baxter doing his amazing Darth Vader, and that he's like 6'8", and so he just fills that suit, and we'll definitely be doing that again. And of course we'll have, even in an abbreviated short line like this, we'll still have our little kind of fun little clinics going on in the corners. And we actually have on the line, we don't have it firm yet, but it's all but guaranteed to happen. It's just when exactly. We are actually having a group of stuntmen come down to actually do a full-blown lightsaber battle for us in the forecourt. So it's going to be some exciting stuff this time.
That'll make for some incredible pictures.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of my favorite memories of being down there is podcasting, throughout the whole experience.
And don't worry, no secret squirrels here.
We don't have to hide our mics.
Yeah, we're all good here. Yeah, we're all fine. Move along. Yeah, we're hoping to actually get our own webcam set up this time as well, so that we can actually have kind of a constant live stream of the line, and maybe even bring it back to the true old school and have an IRC room going on too.
Okay, well now with Facebook Live, like you can
Yeah,
do
exactly.
that.
Yeah, there's so many different ways we can approach it, and we want to have a dedicated channel that's constantly streaming. And while the Facebook Live can work really great, I don't know if we want to have that going 24/7.
No.
So we're looking to set up our own actual webcam setup on our website, probably.
Okay.
Well, how much fun will that be?
I am excited. So if people want to join the line, what do they do?
So the easiest place to find out our details, of course, we have our website, liningup.net. But honestly, I think you're going to get the most current, up-to-date live feeds of information in our group that's up on Facebook. It is, again, liningup.net. And, of course, as you guys know, my sister, Lisi, also Skywalker of the Week. And, of course, Craig, you know as well. We have our own podcast that we do. That is about the line. We're going to be doing our first show here, kind of coming up into our new line season very soon, and giving up new information as we have it to release there. And that show is liningup.net presents Q&A. I know it's a mouthful. That is Q as in the line Q, not the letter Q.
Gotcha.
And we also have a Facebook page for that as well. But that's probably your best place to find it. And, of course, on Twitter, we're at liningup.net.
At liningup.net. Great. Okay.
All right, it's hard to believe that this is only like 10 weeks away.
I know, and our whole method has changed here. We used to have 3 years to plan these things, and now it's like we take a month or two off, and then we say, okay, now we got to start getting down to business. What's we're doing for the next one? Yeah. So we're already starting to put some pieces in place for episode 8.
Wow. My goodness.
My goodness. All right, Rick. Well, when you have the next piece of information, please let us know so all the Skywalkers can know because they are starting to ask us where to go, what to do, and we just direct them right back to you.
Don't worry, I'll be a fulcrum.
Cool.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Rick.
Yeah, sorry, my voice I got a cold. My throat's a little.
And who's the voice of Chopper?
Oh, I see. Okay, that's so good. All right. Well, ask Eliza who the voice of Chopper is, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, you got it.
That wraps up episode 139 of Skywalking Through Neverland. We want to thank Don Post Jr., Ric Peralta of liningup.net,
and Simon Wilkie for getting C-3PO to record his PSA. And of course, our Skywalker family for listening. Now, Skywalkers, we have a podcast soundtrack. Rob Dellinger has released an album on iTunes and all digital platforms, and it is entitled Skywalking Through Neverland Awesome Jingle Mix Volume 1, and contains a bunch of his jingles that he writes for every episode, plus a lot of you Skywalkers on there on your own bonus track. So if you buy that, it helps support the show and Rob Dellinger, which
all
is
the hard work he puts in week in and week out.
Every week.
Now, you can also help us out by sending in your Skywalker stories. Now, we want to hear all about a great moment in your fandom. When you and your friends are all together and you're swapping stories. What story do you like to share? We want to hear something with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion. So, what you got? Let us know.
Yes, please email us with a short synopsis of that story at share@skywalkingthrough-neverland.com.
And we also want to hear about your Skywalker moments. So if you have a moment that you could tell in a minute or two, record it, send it on in. We'd love to play it. Once again, we want to get you Skywalkers involved with each and every episode.
Yes, this is your show too. We are all part of our Skywalker family.
And hopefully we can meet our Skywalker family coming up in the near future.
Oh, nice segue.
Oh, there you go. Up top.
Woo!
There you go. Now, November 5th, we will be at the Rancho Obi-Wan event in Petaluma, California. This is his next big gala. Lots of fun prizes to be had, to be given away.
Yeah, swag bag, I think.
Games. Oh, I can't wait.
I'm
then
so
the next day, we're going to go to the Disney Family Museum.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Should be a fun day right there in the Presidio.
So if any of you Skywalkers are up in that area and want to meet up with us?
Yeah, so go to our Facebook group, and there you'll find events within that group, and these are two of the events that are there. And just a reminder, for September 17th through 22nd, 2017, our 5-night Skywalking Disney cruise to Baja, Mexico on the Disney Wonder is now a Halloween on the High Seas cruise. It is confirmed. So if you love Halloween, if you love podcasts, if you are part of our Skywalker family and want to go, this is the cruise to go on. So head to storiesofthemagic.com/cruise quote and click on the orange Get a Quote button in the upper left to get your free, no obligation quote, and just mention that you want to go on the Skywalking Through Neverland cruise. So Randy Crane, who is of the Stories of the Magic podcast, he knows you want to be a part of our group.
That'll be a major, major meetup next September 2017.
And we can wear costumes.
Yeah. Now, we are part of the Retro Zap family, where you can find awesome shows like Brews and Blasters,
the DCast movie show,
Techno Retro Dads, and
Talking Apes TV.
Where the new episode should be coming out next week.
Excellent.
And now, Sarah, how's our Halloween shirt coming?
It's going good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when could we expect to purchase this Halloween t-shirt that you're working on?
Very soon.
Yeah? Like, how soon? And can you tell us something about it?
Like this week, and I'm gonna dodge the question.
Are you Dave Filoni?
Yes, I am. Look over there. Look, it's a stormtrooper. All right.
Gonna tie you down to your desk chair and look at all these Halloween pictures.
Oh, I've been busy, okay? All right. Well, for social media, we love it. Every morning we do our social media mornings, and I read what you guys have had to say, and Richard makes my breakfast. Works out very well. Yes. So we want you to tweet at us at SkywalkingPod, or we are also at SkywalkingPod on Instagram and Periscope. And then, of course, we have our lovely Facebook group, which is a closed group on Facebook. So if you have not joined that yet and want to, please search Skywalking Through Neverland group, and that should pop up. Request to join the group, and then send us a message. You can send it to our Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook page and say, hey, I want to be a part of the group. I listen to the show. Because we keep it clean, we keep it family friendly, we keep it fun in there, and that means we have to weed out anybody who is trying to spam us.
And I can't wait for our next social media morning where you read our next iTunes review. That's my subtle hint to all you Skywalkers that I want Sarah to read an iTunes review. So in order for her to do that, you got to write one.
Yeah. All right, Skywalkers. Well, we love it when you tweet at us.
Review us.
Yes.
Converse with us. Yeah. Have fun with us.
And we love it when you remember...
Neverland on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant Mark Augushowitz. Technical advisor Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators Donald Wicks, Joey Pittman, and Norma Heitman.
Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Any sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, all rights reserved. Sorry, had to be said.
Battery space, we have 6 hours.
Ugh, okay.
I think
we'll
we can
hurry.
make it.
We'll have to hurry. This is Halloween. This is Halloween.
La 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 la. This is what you can look forward to on episode 139, our kickoff salute to Halloween episode of Skywalking Through Neverland. That was redundant.
Then do it again.
Okay, our kickoff.
Ready,
okay.
and so I'll do that one more time. And the Hunt family, they all listen together as a family. Is that redundant? Yes, it was.
Yes, it is. Look at us, so professional. Oh, before we get into the next thing, Bad Wobot had asked if you can go into Disneyland without paying just to shop. And the last time we were asked about this, which was probably 2 years ago, you can do that. I don't know if they've changed the policy now, but you could get like an hour pass, I think it is, to go in, and you have to give them your credit card. However, And if you're not back through the turnstiles after an hour, they charge your credit card for a whole day.
Yeah, but if you're at like one of the expensive shops and you're seriously buying something, but your time is ticking to the end, they will have the shop call up the front desk and say, hey, this person's running their credit card right now, so give them another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you can do that, yes.
At least as of the last time we checked.
All right, here we go. Before we... One more time.
So head to storiesofthemagic.com/cruise-quote and get... and... bleh!
It's funny that John Chambers brought you into your dad's company.
Well, in a way, I knew John probably back as far as maybe 1958, and he became friends with my dad, and my dad would go over there when John had a problem or needed some help. I remember there'd be a call on the telephone at night, and it would be John Chambers, and they'd have a discussion, and my dad said, well, I'll be over. And then my dad would go over there and help him out in the evenings and help him with whatever projects that he needed help on. So they were friends. He didn't go over there. My dad didn't go over there to make money. He went over there because they were friends. And even back in the 50s, he was doing things like on the East Coast, Dick Smith was doing prosthetics and everything. And out here on the West Coast at NBC, John Chambers was doing the same thing. He was making products for or items for shows, scars, etc. And my dad a lot of times would come into it when they might do a sculpture or have something and they needed some copies. So they'd bring the sculpture to my dad. He'd make a mold and he'd make them copies and give them back to them. And then they would finish them or use them in whatever way they did. One of the things my dad did is he worked with Bob Dawn, who did Mission Impossible. Mm-hmm. And what he would do is make these masks where they were trying to suggest that one of the characters was disguised as another person and wearing these very advanced masks. And really what they would do is they'd just make a skin that would show the person with their eyes closed and everything, and they would suggest that it was being applied to the person's face, and then when they removed it, they just paint a little latex on the person's neck and have them peel it off. And it looked, as they started to peel, they'd hide their face, and then they'd end up popping this mask off. And it was a very clever and believable thing, and even it was so believable at that time that we'd get letters from plastic surgeons wondering how they did that. And it was just a trick. It was just camera magic.
So as we're sitting here in your office, I'm noticing all of your amazing artwork here. So are you a collector at all of artwork, or even of your own Don Post Studios masks? Do you have any of those?
Well, like a lot of... it kind of goes along with what my life is, but a lot of this artwork you see on the wall are from people who are artists, but whom are dear to me. Like this little werewolf over on the wall here, that's Bob Short. And there's a couple things downstairs from Bill Malone. And there's Jim Leonard here, who did this Star Wars etching, who's a very, very good friend of mine. And I'm grateful to have that. And we're doing that for fun. And then also we're talking about making some Downpost Studios type Hawaiian shirts also. So those are some of the things we're talking about, and hope that they'll come to fruition. But that's about it right now. Besides that, the other thing that I did a couple of times along with a guy named Ric Peralta, who was a big Universal Monsters and Mask fan, we did a kind of a presentation or play on the roof of a house in Toluca Lake, and in which we portrayed scenes from Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we did it on the roof of this house. And we'd have maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people standing out in the street watching. And it was a lot of fun. But that's when I was younger.
Please tell me you have this on video somewhere, or did someone film this?
I think maybe Ric Peralta may have the videos on that, if there are any.
Gotta get in contact with Ric Peralta.
That's awesome.
Gotta see this.
Okay.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Eh.